Okay, we're going to use a distributive property to solve these problems. And when you have two parentheses, like we do here right next to each other, the way you solve this is by multiplying the first term times everything in the second parentheses. And then once you do that, you multiply the second term in the first parentheses times everything in the second parentheses. So let me number these. Okay, so we're going to do number 1 first. So that's a squared times a squared equals a to the fourth. Because when you're multiplying, remember you add the exponents. And then we're going to do number 2. A squared times negative 2 is a negative 2a squared. Now we're going to do the second term. We already multiplied the first term times everything in the second parentheses. Now we're going to multiply the second term times everything in the second parentheses. So we're going to do number 3. 3 times a squared is a positive 3a squared. And 3 times 2 is a negative 6. Okay. Once I've multiplied everything, I've got to combine like terms. And since these two terms here have the same variable and the same exponent, I can combine them. So I'm going to get a to the fourth and a negative 2a and a positive 3a equals a positive a squared, because I subtract, and then I've got negative 6. I can't combine the a fourth with anything because there's no like terms with a fourth, and I can't combine the negative 6 with anything because there's nothing to combine that with either. So my answer is a to the fourth a plus a squared minus 6. Okay, we do the same thing here. When you have two parentheses, you grab the first term, you multiply it times everything in the second parentheses. It's be 1. It's going to be 2. Okay. Then you grab the second term and multiply it times everything. Hi, Faithy. Everything in the second parentheses. So I'm going to number this number 3, number 4. You don't have to number it, but I'm numbering so you could see that I'm multiplying these terms like this. Okay, so this is the third term. Now I'm going to multiply the third term times everything in the second parentheses. Okay, and that's how you do all of them. It doesn't matter how many terms you have in the first parentheses. You're always going to grab each term and multiply it times everything in the second parentheses to find your answer. So start with number 1. 2x squared times x squared equals 2x to the third. 2x squared times y equals a positive 2x squared y. And then since I've already multiplied the first term times everything in the second parentheses, I go to the next one. I'm going to do xy. So we're going to go to the second term. Xy times x is a positive x squared y, because remember when you're multiplying you add the exponents. Xy times y is a positive x y squared. And I'm going to go to the third term. Negative 3y squared times x is a negative 3y squared x. And actually put it in alphabetical order, so we're going to put the x first. So 3x y squared. And then negative 3y squared times y is negative 3y cubed. Okay? Now we're going to combine terms, like terms. Let's find all the like terms. Okay, any x cubes? Nope. So that's just going to stay the same, 2x cubed. Any x squared y? X squared y, that's right here we've got x squared y and x squared y, so we're going to combine those. They're both positive, so I'm going to add them. And I get 3x squared y. So I'm going to cancel those out so I don't get confused. Okay, and what I have left is positive xy squared and a negative 3xy. And so since the signs are different, I'm going to subtract. And since my bigger number has the negative sign, my answer is going to be negative. So it's going to be 2x y squared minus 3y cubed. That's my answer. Right here. Okay, this is the review for PACE 100. And what you learn in PACE 100 is how to factor, and we're going to review factoring right now. The first thing I like to do is start off with writing my parentheses. Okay. The next thing I do is I look to see if there are any common factors in the terms that I'm supposed to factor. In other words, like here, nope, there's no, yeah, like here we have an A in all of these, so I look for that and I put the A on the outside of the parentheses. I divide everything by the common factor. So this A is going to cancel out because I divided everything by A, and A divided by A is 1, and 1 times whatever is that. So 1 times x squared is x squared. So I'm not going to write the A's anymore. But I can't just get rid of it, so I put the A on the outside. And then what I get on the inside of the parentheses is 8x squared minus 2x minus 3. Okay, and that's what I'm going to factor, but we'll do that right now in a minute. So I look to see if there are any common terms, any common factors. There aren't. And then I factor the first term, but I write the factors, all the factors of the first term up here. So the factors of y squared are y and y, because y times y gives me y squared. And then I write all the factors of the third term. I forget about the middle term for now. So I write all the factors of the third term. 8 times 7 equals 56, and 56 times 1 equals 56, and 28 times 2 equals 56. Okay, so those are all the factors of 56. Now, which one am I going to use? Well, I already know what I'm going to use for my first term in each parentheses. The letters I'm going to use are y and y, because those are the only two factors of y squared. So those are the only two terms that can go in the first parentheses, right? Because y times y gives me y squared. Now, the other factors, the way I determine which factor I'm going to use in the second place of the parentheses is by subtracting or adding. See, when I subtract or add one of these terms, I've got to get a y. When I subtract or add any of these terms, I've got to get a 1y or a 1. So which one of these two factors of 56 will give me 1 when I subtract or add them? Well, if I add or subtract 28 and 2, I can't get 1. If I add or subtract 56 and 1, I can't get 1. But if I subtract 8 and 7, I get 1. So that's how I know that 8 and 7 have to be my factors, because when I subtract them, I get a 1y. Okay. Now, which one's going to be positive and which one's going to be negative? Well, when you have a negative third term, your answers always have to be, your signs in the middle that go here always have to be different. Okay, when you have a negative third term, the signs that go in the middle have to always be different. But which one's going to be positive, which one's going to be negative? That makes a difference. You can't just write positive and negative. Either the 8 or the 7 have to be positive. How do I know which one's positive? Well, I look at my middle term. My middle term is positive, so the bigger number has to be positive, and the smaller number has to be negative. Why? Well, because when you subtract something and you want a positive answer, your bigger number has to be positive. When you subtract something and you want a negative answer, your bigger number has to be negative. Okay, so that's why I make the bigger number negative in this case, because I want, I'm sorry, not in this one. That's why I make the bigger number positive in this case, because I want a positive middle term. Okay, so let's do the next one here.